My name is James Lanishman again. I'm the CTO of ImageSoft, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about workflow. Let me turn this monitor off here. OnBase workflow and how you could leverage your investment within workflow right now to expand that across your enterprise and increase your ROI. How many people actually have OnBase? I just want to get a show of hands. Should be a good chunk of them. Is it about half? Okay. Of those people, how many actually configure or take an active role in building or modifying existing workflows? Okay, good, good. Throughout this presentation, for those of you who know me, I'm kind of more an interactive type person, so if there's a question or you want to see something, you know, the goal of this is to give you ideas of what you can do in workflow. If you see something in the demo that you're like, oh, how do you do that? Or could you do this? Or could you do that? Please definitely just raise your hand, and we'll take that question. And I want to make sure that you get as much out of it as possible. So as we talked about, you've already own OnBase or in the process of it. You have workflow. You've made an investment in that technology. You've got the team who knows how to support it. So how can you leverage that kind of beyond what you currently have? Most of you probably have some workflows in the court, but they don't need to be just tied only to the court. You can extend these to other departments throughout your enterprise. The goal, obviously, of workflow is to make team members more efficient, to, as they were saying, you know, do more or less with less, but I like to think do more with less. So some of the examples of workflow, and you might actually, in the workflows that you have, already know or experience some of these, but these are things to think about as you're looking at how you can take a workflow or leverage that technology for other departments. We're going to go through a handful of these. This is just a few that, you know, are small, quick hits. For those of you familiar with workflow, you know you can do quite a bit with it. But these are simple, quick hits that allow you to build maybe a fundamental workflow in, you know, 3 days or something like that, and roll that out to a team and actually get some return on that. So simple things like pending, prompting the user, making sure that I'm not prompting for a lot of data. Notifications, that's great. We'll spend a little bit of time on that. It really lets you empower a user who isn't necessarily a typical OnBase user in a way that they don't even need training. E-forms, a very powerful tool, getting even more powerful with OnBase 12 and the Unity forms that is coming out here in a couple months, really empowering your business owners to create forms. Those of you who've had an OnBase system know that e-forms can be a little cumbersome or a little hard to build if you're not technical in the background. Unity forms completely removes that away. It's point and click. If you can go into Visio and draw something, you can build a Unity form that's functional. Leveraging just forms in general for traditional things that maybe right now you keep log files on, or Excel file, or some other Word document logs. How can I leverage that in OnBase and benefit from all the features that I get in OnBase, like audit trail and tracking and security and the fact that nothing gets lost and drops or falls or gets forgotten about. Log and form proc, a very powerful tool, simple tool to empower you to post forms on your public-facing sites to allow constituents to fill out requests or other things to get that data into OnBase without them having to come in and actually do that in paper. In different areas to leverage, again, like I said, most of you have it in the courts, but you know, think about all your other departments, your HR, your finance, marketing, help desk, issue tracking. Any area really can benefit from, you know, a workflow. And these don't have to be complex workflows. For the courts, you probably have incredibly complex workflows, a lot of kind of moving parts. You know, a simple vacation request workflow is 1 or 2 queues, though it still has a huge benefit. You know, and that's something that you can build in a weekend. I'm not saying that you want to do it on a weekend, but you get my point. These aren't things that take, you know, months of time or huge investments. So let's jump into kind of the first item that we wanted to really kind of demo and talk about, pending functionality. Most of you in the courts already have a concept like this, but again, this can be extended. It's very easy to extend to other areas. You know, the concept here is that you've got something in, and your goal, you want to work it, but you need some other piece of information to work in. Maybe another piece of mail that's going to come in. You have no control over when that mail is going to come in, but you're not going to, there's nothing you can do until that happens. You want to be able to, you know, in the paper world, this would have been taking that thing that you had and putting it on the corner of your desk on a stack with everything else that's waiting. And then every day you would go through that stack and look at the bottom and go, well, what's old? And, you know, have I waited too long for something? And do I need to follow up? And you've done that stack every day. And if a piece of mail came in, you riff through the stack and see if it was important. So I can leverage OnBase to do that fairly simply. And I'll show it here, and then I'll show in config, you know, how simple it is to build a workflow to do that. You know, the concept is that you are going to look at a piece of document or look at an event, tell the system when you want to be notified, right? So I'm going to wait 2 weeks, right? If I get mail before then, let me know about it immediately. But if I don't, tell me about it in 2 weeks so I can follow up on it. You know, when that happens, the system is basically constantly monitoring for that new piece of mail. When that new piece of mail comes in, it notifies you and routes it back to you or the user who you've set it up to route to. So I'm going to dive into an example here. I'm going to switch over. Okay. So I'm going to bring up OnBase. This should look familiar to most of you who have OnBase. We built really some just kind of simple workflows that demonstrate this functionality. So I'm going to be in OnBase. I'm going to go open up a form that I'm looking at. This is an e-form. Those of you most of you are probably fairly familiar with the e-forms. I'm going to come in, and this is a document that I'm working, and I'm waiting for a piece of information to show up. Again, I'm going to kind of demo a little bit of the power of e-forms. Don't forget, I mean, I can create creative e-forms. Let me modify the screen here to show you. These monitors are a little small. You know, so don't forget the power of just plain e-forms in general, whether you're using it in workflow or you're just using them to collect data, or as you'll see further on during some of other demos, you know, even for issue tracking. I really can build anything I want. Unity forms are going to make that even more powerful. But, you know, just simple, you know, being able to type in some information, you know, kind of add a comment. You can see that it tracked the date and time and who did it. I'm going to save that. You know, that's just, again, the power of e-forms. This e-form could have been created for any reason. I could create this e-form from a line of business system through application enabler. So if I'm in a system, a human resource system or an accounting system, and I need to track an issue, you know, I can simply click a keystroke in that line of business and create this e-form and get it into the OnBase system. So back to kind of the pending demo. I'm looking at this document and I need to pen this. So I'm just going to double click the pen, and it's going to prompt me down here. You know, when do I want to be woken up? Right? If I don't receive anything by this date, tell me about it. So I'm just going to type in the date, and let's go with like 6/20/2012. 2012. My keyboard's a little sticky. I'm going to submit it, and that could be a date picker. You know, for the demo, I didn't do a date picker, but that could be very simple. And that's penned that document. It's out of my queue, so I'm working on my next document that I need to work on. I don't need to worry about it anymore. It's not in my site. I'm not worried about it over here. The system's got it. If I've told it to pen in 3 days, it'll wake it up. Yes?
Sorry, I'm not an OnBase user, so I may have more questions.
That's right.
Can you set out a certain time period automatically? So you say in the workflow, you can say, I'm pending this, so I want it to wake up in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Okay.
So you could have a default pend of 2 weeks. You could have it based on, you know, what type of document it is, maybe the data on it. If it's $1,000, I'm going to pen for 2 weeks. If it's $1 million, I pen for a day. Mm-hmm. I could have logic that says, you know what, you know, I'm not going to let you pen for more than 4 weeks, and I'm not going to let you push something off for, you know, 7 weeks, because, you know, that's me. Why do today what I can do tomorrow?
Is this something that is set by the user? It's not like a thing that has to be set up by the programmer? The
date, or how long it is?
Dates.
Yes, it can be. So ultimately, it's kind of up to the programmer. So the programmer could, for example, say, you know, when you pend, it's always 2 weeks, period. That's it. No choice, and it would be set by the developer. In this case, though, the end user is prompted for the date. And we can actually, the developer could make some business rules like safeguarding, like maybe say, hey, as a standard, we don't allow you to pen anything for more than 6 weeks. but we'll give you a default and you can override it. So a lot of that kind of customization can be done. Or it could be something as simple as just enter any date you want. So you can do a lot of different things with that. So I've appended that document in this case, and now I'm going to wait for, I either wait till the 20th, which you probably don't have time to do, or I wait for a document to come in, and I'm going to kind of emulate a document coming into the system quickly here by just going out and importing one. And you'll notice what will happen is the document's going to move from the pen queue over here to the new mail queue. So let me just grab a document here, and I'm just doing a simple import. And I'm going to refresh my system, and you'll see that I no longer have anything in the pen. It's gone over to my new mail. If I click on the document, there's that case. And down here, if you'll notice, I've brought in a document. I'm going to double click on it to show it. One of the things that we do, it's again very simple, but you'll notice those 3 stars right next to the name. We use that as a way of showing that you've got new mail. So this is a situation where maybe 2 pieces of mail came in for that same event, right? So instead of sending this document or this piece of work to you twice, which you wouldn't want to ever see it, you just want, when you get to it, you want to see everything that's new. Whether it's 1 piece of mail or 20 pieces of mail, you're going to look at each message and address that and determine what your next step is in that workflow. So we do that simply by decorating that document so it shows at the top with these stars. And I can look at that document, I can come over here and look at that document and go, you know what? Great, I needed that, I'm done with it. I'm just going to drag it and drop it and mark it as red. And now you notice the stars went away. I can do the next document, look at that, say I'm done with that one, mark it as red, and then I can continue my workflow process. So this is just kind of a simple pen. I mean, it can be part of a complex core process. This could be something, part of a simple AP approval process where I've gotten the invoice and I'm just waiting to get proof of delivery. And when I get that in there, I'm just going to forward it on. Yes?
You right now imported a document. If I have a document which somebody sends me as an email, can I print it to your OnBase?
So, yes, but you can actually even go one step further. Okay. So in most of the standard email clients, you can actually, right within that email client, for example, right within Outlook or GroupWise, I can actually just drag and drop that whole message or its attachments right into OnBase from Outlook. Matter of fact, I don't even know that I'm in OnBase. I can do it right here. I can just open up a message and import that document right in. Now, let's say I was in some application, some weird application or some custom application that didn't have OnBase integration. I can print also from any application right into OnBase. So I can actually do kind of both.
So from Excel, so if I have something in Excel, I'm keeping, which case is when, I could print that right.
You could print that. We also integrate with Excel too. So you right within Excel, you could have a saved OnBase button. Okay. But you could also print right from Excel. We often see a lot of the printing. So if you go out to a website to do, maybe you need to go do a check of something on a web page. And a lot of times, in an accounting or in an HR, you might have a site that you're doing some cross-referencing. That's a great example where you go up and print the results right into OnBase instead of printing and scanning. But you can do it in Excel too, because some people like the way Excel prints certain documents. They want really almost a printout versus that Excel raw file with 12 tabs, and they don't want the formulas. So I can simply print right into OnBase too. And any way that document comes in, whether it was printed or came in through Outlook, if it was related to what this person had put a hold on, it would have notified them. So let me jump back to present. Was there any other questions on that?
Did you remove the red stars after you processed it?
I removed the red stars when I drag and drop to the red, and actually in the workflow. I'm sorry?
To identify something new from something
you
processed?
Exactly.
That's really neat.
So, I do that, and if I accidentally mark something as red that I shouldn't, I can mark it as on red. So I'm just basically toggling. And the way that we achieve that, that's a keyword. So if I actually open up the keywords on this document, and they're probably hidden, but no, they aren't. Right, we left them on hidden. It's just a keyword. Most of the time it's hidden, so your users won't see it, but for the demo we left it out. So as you basically but that's just part of the auto name. So in OnBase, every document I can configure what it looks like to people. I just show that value. And when I do those tasks, I'm just toggling on and off the keywords that I put in there. And I make it red just by how I do it.
We're not OnBase users, so this is all new.
Okay.
But we're core, and this kind of interaction right here, is this from judge's perspective, is this from clerk's perspective? When we're talking about bringing in a document like that, reading it, dropping it, you're talking about pulling stuff in from an email that needs to probably be identified, coded, so that the document gets the right characteristics to pull it back up and associate with the right case, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Yeah. So this is probably from a perspective of really a non-existing user, because it really is kind of quite quaint in that it's demo. So typically in our courts, a judge does work an interface. It looks similar to this, but their cues are going to be a lot different, and they might just be reviewing and signing documents or filling out a form. They would never be bringing in an email, though they could. A lot of the documents that are coming in through paper from the clerk's office being scanned. So it's kind of a much more, it really reaches out and really is, we're pulling in that paper at the right spots. But in this case, I just did that import. And they always could, but typically that solution is more tailored to each of those different groups and departments and roles. So that interaction of a judge would be a lot different than maybe the interaction of a court clerk or a judge assistant. Although they're all working the same system and ultimately might see the same documents, the way they interact with it and what they need to do to get it to work is tailored to their needs. Yes.
I'm not an OnBase user either, and I have just a quickie question. Can you are those the panes within that window there?
Yes.
Can you arrange those any way you want?
Yes, I can take them out and arrange them. And
because we were thinking how you're moving the task, mark the email as red. That's a long distance to travel.
Yeah,
if you're looking at 5,000 documents or something.
I can move things. And actually, in some of the versions, I can actually click, and the buttons will be up here to do it.
Okay.
Right. So,
okay.
Yes. And yes, you can move these around and dock them on separate monitors. And I'm waiting for the dual screen projectors, which really models more reality now instead of these tiny little.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
I have a question.
Yes.
Task. Calendar. Task. Within OnBase, is there a specific list of tasks that you add, or do you, as a developer, you create your own tasks?
As a developer, you would create your own tasks. So I was in the new mail queue. I'm in config here. I'm not going to get too detailed, but here are the tasks, and I can right-click and create a new task, and I can build all the advanced logic that I want through rules and actions and point and click. So all of this I can control and build. So it doesn't come preset with finite lists of I can do that, and I can't do anything else. I get kind of ultimate flexibility to build whatever I want.
So will this typically be, for given installation, will this typically be configured by you guys or by the customer, as far as setting up all the different document classes?
So typically, and for most of the customers here who have leveraged us will contest, we will come in and that first project, we will meet with your teams and recommend and build this first solution. The second solution, so what typically happens, it's a phased approach. So we might go in and do it like the front of the court. And we'll work with you, and we'll build it, we'll work with your staff. And I think that's a perfect question, because the goal is once we've built one and your staff becomes more aware of it, and maybe the second one we work together, you guys become empowered to build it. Right? You go to training, there's no special keys. I don't have a little software password that I type in to build any of this. You guys can do everything that I can do. So that's, the goal is once that first system is in and you've seen us build it and we work with you to do the second or third, you can take it and run with it. And we've got customers who we put systems in, 12 years ago, and, we put in the first 3 departments and it's across their whole enterprise. And that's kind of the key of, I think, this session is, once it's in and you know how to do it, you can do a lot of things with it to empower your users and get a return on that investment. And you're not buying software, you're not buying IT knowledge, you've got it all. You're just building the workflows. Anything else? Okay, jump over here. So that was the pending. This one is I'm going to do fairly quick. And this is probably more for some of the folks who've had some workflows, maybe tried to build some in the past and just found some of the things a little cumbersome, possibly having to enter in data more than once. So this is just an example of kind of how that product has evolved for our customers who've had it for many, many years. In some of the hold on one second here. Come back here. So there used to be a time when if I wanted to enter in some data about a document, I entered in that data on every document. And for those of you who have been using workflow, you might have found this. You might even have workflows where a person enters in the same data 3 times, once for each document. And they'll look at you'll see them do this, right? They'll look at a document, they'll come in here, they'll enter in a date or whatever it is, right? And they hit, enter on that, and they're entering this data in every document over and over and over, and it's the same data, and it's just the way that the system was built, 5 years ago or so. It's never been addressed. Well, that issue's was addressed a while ago, but a lot of people haven't actually looked at that and realized that they can actually just go to an existing workflow that they've got and simply modify it to leverage this. It's simple. Like, this isn't any huge thing. You're not going to, it's not going to ooh and ah people, but it is a time saver, and anything that's a time saver obviously is good. So now within OnBase, I can just simply come in, click a single button, enter in a date once, and submit it, and it'll apply to all the documents. Seems simple, but it can be a time saver when you look at how it's used.
How would you know it's the same date if you haven't looked at all the
I kind of skipped it, but I could have clicked. So let me show you again. Yes, that's a good point. So, and my demo lets me reset it. So I could come in here and look at that and go, okay, that's one date, that's the same date. In the case of like invoices, a lot of times I even know I'm outstanding. I'm going to just pend all these. For example, it could be tied back to our pen. I'm going to pend all these for a week and a half. I don't really, that's good enough for me. But you're right, I kind of skipped a step. Thanks. Jump back here. Notifications. This is probably one of the most underused but most important parts of workflow. The ability to send a notification to someone and say, you've got work to do, and not only say that you've got work to do or I want you to view something, but in that notification, embed in it a link so that I can, within the email client, just click a link and up pops that document so I can see it. So I don't have to really even know what OnBase is. I don't have to know how to do a search in OnBase. I don't have to really even understand what I can do. I just know that I get an email, it's a copy of an invoice that I want to see, and I click a link and there it is. So I'm going to kind of give a quick little demo of that, show you what that looks like, and then we can talk a little bit more about that. So I'm going to come in again back to our invoice examples. And I need to move them to a queue for the demo here. So these are here. I've got a couple tasks set up. These could be automated tasks, or these could be tasks that a human generates. So in this case, I'm clicking this, but these could be system tasks. Your workflow could automatically be sending these notifications based on business rules. So I'm going to send a notification. I've looked at this document. I'm fine with it, but I know that a certain person wants to always see these invoices. So I'm just going to say notify accounting. I know accounting wants to see this type of document. That was it. That's all I needed to do. I'm going to come over to my mail client here, and I'm going to wait for that email to show up. I'm going to force it to go a little quicker by hitting send receive, and I've got an email. Now, from the accounting standpoint, this is what they see. They don't know anything about OnBase, or for the person who's receiving this. They get this email. The text can be whatever you want it to be, but it basically just says, please note this invoice was paid, and if I want to view it, I can just simply click on it. I'm going to log in. I can leverage Active Directory, so if I was in your environment, I wouldn't have to log in, but in this case, I am going to log in. So it's going to bring up a login screen for me really quick here, and I'm going to type in my password, or someone's. And up pops this document for me to review. I'm in the OnBase client, so I have all the power of OnBase. I can put sticky notes, highlights, I can print it if I have the right rights, I can do whatever I want to do with it. Or ultimately, I can just look at it and go, you know, I'm happy with it, I'm not going to do anything. If I wasn't happy with it, I could reply to that email and say something about it. So this is a case where I just want to send something to someone, right? I'm empowering that user to get information without them having to go find it themselves, right? And it could be a simple workflow where it just notifies, you know, account owners of invoices that have been paid, right? It goes to your accounting department. You know, they probably put them in a place where the manager could go look at, but they never go. Where I can actually just send out every time we pay an invoice, it's going to show up in your mailbox. Look at it. You know, if you're happy with it, don't do anything. Hey, if there's a problem, if you're not happy with what you saw, let me know. The other option is I could also empower those users to act in part of the workflow. So let's go back to that paying in an invoice, right? So I'm sure a lot of people here sign off on some level of invoices or get something, say, yes, we got it, pay it, don't pay it. So I could be the accounting department could look at that and go, you know, we need to send this for approval. And again, who's going to approve it? I simplified in this workflow. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to come in here and do a send receive and get invoice approval needed. So in this case, you'll see I've got an email, quite simple, just please approve this invoice. I'm going to click on it. When I click on this link, I'm going to get a slightly different interface. Again, I'm going to log in. And you'll notice now what it's loading is it's loading a workflow interface. So I'm looking at this document in workflow. I'm looking at the invoice. And if I'm happy with it, I can just approve it, and I'm done. It's gone, and I close out. I didn't even have to understand how to use OnBase. And I was able to act in that workflow. Yes?
Can you just send a copy of the document? You don't need approvals, you just want to send a copy of the document through WorkFlow?
Yes.
To someone outside of your...
Yes. So in my case, I'm sending a link, so kind of a live link to a document, so that when that person views it, they have to view it through OnBase. I'm honoring security and I'm tracking it. But that same technology could just have attached that document. Okay. It could attach it as a PDF or as an encrypted PDF and send it outside. Okay. So we can jump back here. So we talked a little bit about this. Doc Pop, we call it. Workflow Pop, we call it. This is that ability to push out things to your users. The key things about these are you don't have to train your user base. Right? I mean, that email that I sent out could actually have all the directions. So for the approval of the invoice, it could have all the directions. You know, please review the payer, the dollar amount. If you agree with it, hit the approve button. If you don't agree with it, hit the decline button and type in a note as to why. Right? That's self-training. Right? They can wake up one morning, and as long as they know that these emails are legit, they didn't have to go to a training class to actually partake in that workflow and get some ROI in there. So a huge benefit for there. I was showing you popping up a document. I could just as easily pop up a folder, so a case folder, or a folder on an HR record, an employee folder. So that system could have popped up, or that email link could have pulled up a whole HR record, again, based on OnBase security. I probably wouldn't be sending those out, but would show me everything within a folder review. So instead of just seeing a single document, I would see a folder that shows me everything. So I'm not going to demo that because we want to get through a couple other items really quick here. If someone wants to see that, we can show that. eForms, again, we talked a little bit about eForms. I can really leverage eForms to kind of to build simple data tracking systems add a little bit of workflow to that, pending and timers, and I could quickly build a help desk ticketing system, where on your internet site or intranet site, you can put a little form up there that people use to submit a ticket. It comes into WorkFlow. It leverages the notification. It notifies someone that there's a new document in there. They can look at that right from their web client, route it to someone to get worked. Couple-step workflow. I've got a ticketing system, and I can actually then build reports off of those workflow e-forms. So, not only do I have live systems where I can go in and say, show me all open tickets or show me all closed tickets, but I can leverage OnBase to actually export that list of tickets to Excel and build pivot tables and all the fun things that I might ever want to do in Excel. I can build simple things in my workflow to empower. So one of the questions was, do administrators have to control every aspect of my workflow? Or as users, can you kind of guide how aspects of your workflow work? And the answer is yes. As users, you can guide how aspects of your workflow work. So you could have an invoice approval process that's normal, but has an exception where if a kind of a bad vendor form exists, we route those invoices to a special handling queue. Now, I don't want to have to go to my administrator and go, you know what, this week, these ImageSoft guys are a bad vendor, can you add them to the exception list? I can empower my user community to create basically a bad vendor e-form and type in my name. And anytime an invoice comes in from me, it's going to compare it to the list of bad vendors that you as the business owner manage, and it changes the routing within the workflow. And once I'm off the list, you just remove that form, and all of a sudden I'm back to the normal routing. So I'm able to kind of empower, you can empower your business users to control some of these routings to meet their needs. We talked a little bit about keeping logs with forms. I can come in, and I'm just going to do a quick little demo of that. So again, I might have some documents. I've got a series of complaint log forms that I'm going to do. I can simply click over here, generate a CSV file. I'm going to include all the keywords. I'm just going to come out here and export it to a file here. Click generate. And again, these are really simple things, but if you have a simple process that you still need somehow to get it out to Excel to do some manipulation of it, and that's the showstopper to taking the rest of it into workflow, don't let it be. I could come in here, and here's my data. I picked only one document, so it only showed me one, but if I picked them all, it would have shown me all of the documents that I did a search on. Excuse me as I bounce back and forth between the demos. One of the key benefits of one of the large areas of workflow where we really see a lot of customers do this too is a lot of times you have a line of business system. For those of our court customers, you have court management systems, but they didn't do document management. But you might also have accounting systems or HR systems. So a common one is HR, where, I've got an HR system. It manages employee relationships. It manages, salaries and tax deductions, but it doesn't manage employee reviews. And I wish it did, but it didn't. So I can leverage OnBase. I can build, a simple employee review form or a complex employee review form, and let OnBase, manage that employee review process, pulling feeds from, your HR system, using notifications like we just talked about, sending out links to employees going, it's time for your annual review, please fill out this form and submit it, submitting that, going into a workflow, notifying a manager that there's a form out there to review. So I can really empower maybe a line of business system, and when I'm in that line of business system, leveraging things like Application Enabler, hit a button and pull up documents, right, or pull up an employee folder. So I'm maybe HR, and I'm in my HR system, and I can hit a quick button and pull up that whole employee folder, see the tabs of all their documents, see everything they've got. So just as an example of a fairly straightforward workflow, it looks a little messy on the screen, but this is 8 queues. Am I counting right? 9 queues? That's nothing, right? These queues are simple to create. They're just landing zones for a person to look at. So I can build an employee review process, put together, a 5-step, 8-step process fairly quickly, build a form. Now, this case, this is an example of a complex form, but it can be a very simple form, or it can be as complex as you want. This form actually has 5 sub-tabs for this customer, and all those sub-tabs actually do math and end up creating a score and everything. So I can really leverage the power of eForms here. Or I could keep it something as simple as, a 1-pager. That's what we use at our office, is a 1-page review form with no math. We're technical, so math is a little hard. Yeah. So, and again, you can route it through a simple series of workflows, leveraging notifications, getting it to the right people to do the review. Did I see a hand? Oh, maybe not. Some other examples that we've kind of talked about. These are, again, the goal of being able to leverage this is what are the quick hits? Right? What are the things that you really can do that can leverage your existing investment and drive solutions in other departments? So, travel approvals. Any place that you have anyone filling out a form saying, hey, I want to get approval to travel to here or to there. Right? Turn it into a simple form. You know what the form looks like. You got it on paper already. Turn it into a simple form. The beauty about it is I have security around it. I have auditing around it. So when someone goes, well, I submitted that form 3 weeks ago and you didn't approve it, OnBase knows whether you really did submit it and whether you really didn't approve it, which is great. We talked a little bit about HR reviews, invoice approval, budgeting, right? Anything that you're filling out forms, anything that you're doing a simple process for. One of our Supreme Courts, as an aside, built a workflow for conference rooms and projectors, right? And at first I'm like, okay. But they had a lot of conference rooms and a lot of projectors, and it actually made sense. And they fill out a form, a very simple form, and it asks for, I want this conference room and this projector, and there's a conference room kind of coordinator who gets notified, because it doesn't happen, it's not like they're looking in the queue 8 hours a day. They get notified, and they look at everything. They have all these forms. They can tell quickly what's in use, and they might tell a person, no, I'm going to put you in this room. They send that e-form back, and they have a queue, and that represents all active conference rooms that are reserved. In a very simple workflow, and it solved a huge problem.
Yes, one of the things that happened around the room was people really like to hear about I think it was the audit trail, so that they know that someone's approved something and they can go back and say, well, you did say yes.
Right.
I wonder what people are doing now currently. Is it a manual process to get that in?
Yeah, that is a good question. In the paper world, what do you do now? How do you address those situations where someone said, hey, I submitted it, or someone said, well, they did say yes, and now you've got this contradiction where someone's going, no, I did not say yes to that. I said no, and now you're saying yes. Leaving them miles to say yes now. Exactly.
Or just to get someone to quietly agree because they did before, and just be pleasant about it rather than make it a big wrestling match.
Yeah. So, that's a good point. Again, because OnBase tracks, as for those of you who don't have OnBase tracks anytime a person views a document, any action they take on that document, if they print a document, if we allow them to print them. So we track all of that detail. So if there's ever a question of, well, what did or did not happen, or what did someone see or not see, OnBase has that information for you.
To answer your question, I've seen people using email to track and
So you have to go all the way back to
Back.
find that email.
Yeah.
John said you to do
So
it.
there's no, and with Outlook you can set up messaging,
Yeah.
so you can see it as it's a message,
Yeah.
so they track it that way.
So
But
that takes a little time.
it takes a lot of time. You mentioned a couple of times application enabler. What is that?
Oh, okay. That's a great question. So OnBase's application enabler is a tool that lets me take any line of business. So you might have an accounting system, throw out a system, everyone name a system that they use, a piece of software that they use. Let's even take QuickBooks. Everyone, probably people have heard of QuickBooks, no one uses it, but it's just a little piece of software, right? Or, whatever you use at home to do your online, let's take online checking, for example. That's a great example. Online checking. Everyone's done online checking, right, through their bank. Some companies actually do online checking kind of in mass, right? So instead of being more personal, it's online checking for a whole enterprise. I can take that application, which I don't own, I have no control over, it's provided by Chase, and I want to integrate it with my OnBase system so that when I'm looking at a check record or an account record in the system, I want to be able to hit a key and find out what purchase order was associated with that check request. Now, I could go to my imaging system and search for purchase orders and type in, the vendor name and do a search, or I could configure through Application Enabler a link between those two systems, and I can do that without the involvement of Chase. I don't need them to code anything. I'm not going to get a bill from them for services. I can point and click, and unfortunately I don't have it on my demo, or I'd show you. I can literally point and click on their screen and say, when I hit Control F, right, read the value in this button or this box and retrieve documents that have something to do with that. So it really allows me to enable a third-party application that I have no control over.
Does Application Enabler allow you to push data into the line of business applications?
Application Enabler allows me to pull data from a line of business application. If you need to push data into other line of business applications, there's other things, other tools within the product family that can push data. We can push data to the screen. We can actually push data back end through things like BizTalk. Now getting too technical. But we can do that. But the Application Enabler product is really pulling data.
So is it done by screen scraping?
You can think of it as screen scraping, but it's much more resilient than screen scraping. It actually is doing it through Windows messaging, through the MessageNet. I can do it through Java applications. I can do it through Windows applications. I can do it through Internet Explorer or IE or web browser-based applications. In each one of those, we leverage slightly different technology. We don't do the Windows scraping. A lot of people are familiar with the
generic.
Yeah, but that's a good term. Yeah.
You mentioned Java and other technologies. How about, do you guys do anything with Silverlight?
With Silverlight, we can integrate with Silverlight, yep, and read the Silverlight screens, and we actually have Silverlight controls for rendering data too, so we can actually build Silverlight solutions too. We've got a few more minutes, but I can stay as long as I think my next session's in here too, so I'll be staying another 15 minutes.
You mentioned earlier about the case management screens and how you can see the actual document file. Is there a way to get that set up to see? I know you have other questions you can answer.
The actual foldering?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I'll do that really quick here.
Can you state that question?
Yeah.
I was asking to bring up the folders. He mentioned earlier you can see the single document, but I want to see the case management other folders.
Fine. So I'm going to show it within the OnBase client, but again, this could come from an email link or an application enabler, but I could be right within WorkFlow and say I'm interested in looking at a folder. So you'll notice here I've got a folder view. I can see my documents in my foldering. I can see my different tabs that I have, what documents I have out there. And this is a foldering structure. This foldering structure can look like whatever you want in your environment. Is that what you were thinking?
Is there like a maximum capacity-wise for? Okay.
No, there isn't. I can have these nested. They can be intelligent. So for HR, I might have review, and the system will intelligently create a 2010, a 2011, a 2012 folder. I could have a folder that represents a vendor, right, where I have maybe my tax documents associated with the vendor, and then I could have a folder below that that represents every invoice and the packing slip and a copy of the check and everything, and I could even have it broken up by invoice if I wanted. And the beauty about folders, and this is key, is documents can be in any number of folders. So I could have a view of a folder, and another department can have a view of a folder. So like in HR, the HR's view of the folder is going to look one way. A manager's view of that HR folder can look completely different with completely different security on it. And I'm not duplicating any of those documents. The system manages all of that. Anything else? Yes.
Well, this question is for people in here. Is anybody currently using this system, and can you explain how it has benefited you?
Let's talk about Application Enabler. I interface with the Veterans Affairs. They bring up their database. They hit a Control F. They populate the keywords on any document that they've scanned, and they import it automatically. That's what I do with application enabler on a site I have on my own. We have extensive use of all that with court case management software. We're flopping stuff back and forth. Our warrant clerk girls, they don't type anything. They import it into OnBase. We've actually modified it a little bit, like you mentioned earlier, to go the other direction in some databases also. It certainly has helped. It's a lot quicker, but it's also a lot more reliable for like the CTN numbers you call a case tracking number. It's always the same because once it's in there, you're using the same one every time you flop it back and forth. You're not retyping it and maybe getting something wrong. And,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you search through? I mean, you put up this particular claim 11111, but can you?
I can actually.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So, and again, that I'm pulling up a folder through a workflow or through a thing, but as part of OnBase, I can actually just go search for a folder. Again, if I have rights to it, I could search for it by name, by claim number. It could be an employee folder. It could be a vendor folder. And again, based on my security, if I'm in HR, I only see HR folders. I have no idea that this system's actually used for accounting. It's used for the courts. Yes.
For the application enabler, can that pull down out of a 3270 base?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. That's where we do the screen scraping.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.